and also the prices can be stabilized as well. Thank you, Chairman. This debate has now come to a close. The committee now proceeds to the fourth debate. The debate themes are land, housing. Well, the clerk, please read out the names of the heads. Heads 25, 33, 39, 42, 44, 60, 62, 82, 91, 118, 137, 138, 158, 159, and 186. The themes are land, housing, transportation, environment, and conservation. The respective policy areas covered in this debate are housing, development, planning, land and works, building safety, transport, economic development, energy, environmental affairs, and conservation. 7 members, including Albert Chen, Chi-chuen, Gary Fan, Sit Ho, Wu Chi-wai, Kwok-hung, Yuk-man, have respectively given notice to move a total of 106 amendments to reduce the various sums for 15 heads, including heads just to mention. The contents of the amendments are relevant to the areas of this debate. I will first call upon the Honourable Albert Chen to speak and move amendment number 58 as set out in Appendix 1C to the script, to be followed by Chi-chuen, Gary Fan, Sit Ho, Wu Chi-wai, Kwok-hung, and Yuk-man to speak respectively, but they may not move amendments at this stage. Mr. Albert Chen. Chairman, I move that before I move the amendment in Appendix 1C to the script, I'm worried that members are not aware of what's happening, so I will invoke 17.3 to ask them to come back.
陈伟议员。
Mr. Pt1, please move your amendment and speak. Chairman, I move that amendment as set out in Appendix 1C to the script be passed. Chairman, in 1C, I have 50-odd amendments covering Buildings Department, CEDD, CMSD, Highways, EPD, Buildings Department, Government Secretariat, DNB, Development Bureau, Transport Department, THB, and all the rest of the departments and bureaus. Chairman, with the sheer number of bureaus and departments, I need to take a bit of time setting out my rationale. There are problems that have been building up over the years. I have been following up on the development and infrastructure for about a decade. From the initial unfamiliarity, I become sort of a semi-expert now. I have actually exchanged a lot of views with the secretaries and the permanent secretaries. Even before problems arose, I forewarned that problems were going to occur. Of course, there are certain issues over which I would support at the beginning, but then I objected to them. The Lentang is a case in point. The government proposed a two-lane carriageway. I said that this would not be enough. There should be three-lane. And I said that the land to be resumed would not be enough. I also said that in NENT, there should be satellite towns with a population of 50,000 or 70,000. And these satellite towns can increase the land supply in Hong Kong. In the Lentang and NENT development, it should be served by the rail. My proposal was that NENT would be an important area where we try to resolve the housing problem. But with Chi-wai being office, he twisted the concept around, and he meant to develop the NENT as the backyard for the tycoons up north. So there have been conceptual changes to the proposal. I've nailed my color to the mast and clearly object to the Lentang development because of the conceptual changes. At the very beginning, I hope that Lentang and NENT would be developed together as a means to alleviate the housing shortage in Hong Kong. The purpose of the development has changed. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm referring to Amendment 58, Head 25, to cut 120 $1.054 million, that's equivalent to the staff emolument for the Buildings Department. This may be a radical proposal. It's not as if I deny the contribution made by the civil servants or the integrity of the professionals, but because of the errors in the policy formulation, As a matter of fact, the civil servants are politically neutral. They do have their expertise. But when the government has Chi-wai, the puppet of the Communist Party, change the policy, the civil servants have been exploited as a tool to implement the proposal and control Hong Kong on behalf of the Communist government. So this is the reason why I put forward this amendment. If you look at Lien Tang, the costs have been escalating. The same can be said about other projects. The government argued that this has to do with the rising costs. Over the years, we've seen that construction materials have been declining in costs. Iron, or steel, and copper, some by as much as 50%. Labor costs have increased for sure, but this is what the government's doing. There is a lack of coordination on the part of the government. They get on with projects, many projects simultaneously, and there is a competition for the labor resources. And as a result, the shortfall of labor has resulted in poaching at higher cost. And this is the result of a lack of coordination on the part of the government. I kept asking the Development Bureau as to the total infrastructural costs and infrastructural development, how much can the market bear? The government said that the total expenditure that can be borne by the market can be as much as $170 billion. But if you look at the costs, some of them are beyond the estimate of the government. There are some projects involving the boring of tunnels, reclamation, the financial outlay may involve a smaller number of workers, but there are other projects like the refurbishment of the hospital authorities' buildings. They would be very labor intensive, and there are many old tenement buildings, 50 to 80,000 buildings in Hong Kong are more than 30 years old. If you cast your mind back 30 years ago, there was the boom of building construction. Each year we had 70, 80,000 units that were completed. Today they've hit the 30-year mark, and a lot of them have not been undergoing any refurbishment. We've heard of disputes over refurbishment, some costing $50,000, $70,000, and some as much as $200,000, $300,000 in terms of refurbishment costs, and that would involve the tiling, replacement of pipes and scaffolding, and a lot of work that will be labor intensive. So when hundreds of thousands of units are undergoing refurbishment, you can imagine how bad the labor market is going to be. Now, many owners will take the opportunity to refurbish their own units as well, so the demand for workers will be enormous. You also have reclamation, rail projects, housing production taken together. The construction sector is under tremendous pressure, and it is really overwhelmed with so much pressure. And we have some senior government officials who are proceeding to retirement. The permanent secretary is proceeding to retirement, and the new ones succeeding the post that may not have all that experience. So we cannot underestimating the situation. The rising costs, sky's the limit really, as far as the costs are concerned. That for the express rail, the XRL, Mr. Michael Tin said the overrun is going to be $10 billion. I said it's going to be $100 billion. Now, some newspaper reports suggest that it is as much as $90 billion.
So the problems are really serious. As to the final figures, as to the true picture, I'm afraid they're still being hidden and they haven't been disclosed. I can foresee that there will be very serious cost overrun cases. It will be unprecedented, and the figures, when they're disclosed, will be very shocking and will anger the people of Hong Kong. So for the ASD, I think it must bear some of the responsibilities. But of course, I know that a lot of their staff members are technocrats, they are civil servants, but still they need to do some soul searching, and they should have come forward to speak their mind. For the development projects that we are undertaking, I'm afraid our local construction industry just doesn't have the capacity to cope with them. So I don't think we should try to overestimate ourselves and try to force through it. So we have seen that the situation is quite bad. Mr. Chairman, there's one other item I want to turn to, and that is Head 158, and that is to cut Professor Champing Leung's pay. And in fact, I've always criticized him. Professor Cheung would only choose to side with whichever party that would give him the benefit, like siding with the Democratic Party, or at that time he tried to stand in an election, and so he made a number of pledges, but then he had never honored them. I, of course, put the question to him about June 4th, but then he would never answer my question. That is, would he agree that there was a massacre and whether he would like to vindicate June 4th, but he would never give an answer. So I have already said that he's a man lacking in integrity. When he first took up the post, I have known him for 20 years. I've already said from the beginning that he knew nothing about transport. Yes, he has done some research into public administration, but then he hasn't got any real-life experience. He hasn't led any public organization. Moreover, for transport, I think he's totally ignorant in that regard. But then he's supposed to oversee the ferry service, the airport, MTR, franchise buses, minibuses, etc. The transport sector is very complicated. I've been in this business of public affairs for 30 years. I can claim that I have some knowledge about it, but then it is highly complicated. All the interests are intertwined, and we need to rely on the service to serve the public. Transport and infrastructural developments are closely related, and you can see from the case of the development of Tuen Mun in the last century, there were many tragedies, and then we've also got the hardship of those living in Chi-wai. This is all because of a lack of coordination and also maladministration, and therefore hundreds of thousands of residents have to face the pain every day. They have to wait a long time to board a bus. The buses are too full for them to board, and they have to wait until after midnight before they can come home. So for somebody who knows nothing about transport to be the STH is indeed a disastrous. and he cannot control the Civil Aviation Department. The MTR is a powerful autonomy. And then for the XRL, the cost was overrun. It has reached $90 billion. I will speak again later. Mr. Raymond Chen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In fact, before I speak every time, I have to say that regarding the time allocation arrangements, I find your decision most unreasonable. Now we're in the fourth debate, and we have to include a lot of topics: housing, transport, planning, land matters, works, building safety, energy, environmental protection, conservation. And there are altogether 106 amendments, 15 heads and 7 members. I myself have moved 31 amendments. I've talked to other members who have moved amendments. Well, they have said that at least we should be given the time to speak once for one amendment. Of course, some of us have moved a couple of amendments. They have reasonable expectation to be allowed to speak a few times. I don't want to be so ambitious as to expect 31 slots to speak, but at least I should be given the chance to talk about the heads involved: DSD, EMSD, Highways Department, Building Department. It is a disaster zone. I need more than one slot. Environment, THB, Development Bureau, Lands Branch, Lands and Planning Branch, and then THB in relation to the Director Bureau as well as the TD. So Professor Zheng and also Paul Chen, I think for the 2 directors of bureaus, I think members should take this opportunity to speak our mind. Some have congratulated Paul Chen because in July 2012, when he was already the director, when he was promoting the development of Northeast NT, it was exposed that he owned 3 sites of agricultural land, and then through his wife, he might have conflict of interest. Now today, the ICC has announced that Paul Chen and his wife will not be prosecuted. Through his spokesman, he has said that he would not give a reply. You don't face prosecution, but it doesn't mean that you haven't done anything that is improper. Later on, I will try my best to get time to talk about the wrongdoings of Paul Chen. Here, I would like to talk about the case of Professor Zheng. Now, THB. I want to focus on transport at this moment. I want to tell you that I would like to cut his pay. Other than myself, Raymond Wong, Albert Chan have also moved similar amendments. Now, please understand how much he is paid. Annual pay $3.58 million. He has a deputy secretary as well as a political assistant. And in fact, we also seek to cut the expenditure to pay for them for the entire year. I will urge members to support my amendments. For those who are against the 3 one-way system, please take this opportunity to criticize him. Although we know that sea transport and air transport are for the next debate, but then that's for the CAD as well as the Marine Department, not quite directly about the STH. So please don't miss the opportunity to criticize him. THB, for the past year, the secretary has been performing very well. There is dereliction of duty, like the MTR, the projects, one after another, were found to be slipping much behind the schedule, and therefore he could be the secretary that had been apologizing the largest number of the most number of times. And then the CEO of MTR as well as Mr. Chow resigned over the matter. For the Western Island Line, in May last year, the MTR for the first time admitted that there will be slippage. for the tunnel or the subway leading to Queen's Road West and First Street, the soil was too soft, and so it had to resort to a more technical way to deal with it, and as a result, the project was delayed. And then there was a remedial action, that is to insist that the Western Island Line to be commissioned in time. Then Sai-ying-pun Station cannot be open in time, but of course we know that it has been opened since then. And then I understand that the quality of works at the stations are far from satisfactory. We have seen water leakage in the concourse, the walls, the pipes, etc. We have seen water seeping out all the time. You see water marks on the floor. Cleaning workers have to clean up the place all the time. Parts have to be hoarded up to prevent passengers from falling down. And then for Sai-ying-pun Station, the case is worse. In fact, a particular place has been blocked and water is gushing out, probably because of the blockage by sand and grit. We've been told that the water pressure is relatively higher because of the fact that the station is far deep into the ground. It is said that the water seepage will not affect the structure of the station or the running of the trains. Grouting will be used to fill the gaps and the water will be drained away. There has been project slippage. In order to beat the deadline, they're doing it at the expense of work's quality. We are yet to enter the wet season, so we are really worried that Sai-ying-pun Station is going to be flooded and the entire train service may be jeopardized. He is the leader in this portfolio. Has he done a proper job? And then it was only announced when exposed by the media. And then for the XRL Hong Kong section, and then South Island Line, Kowloon Extension, Sha Tin Central line, I think we know that we have the scandals of overrun of costs as well as slippage. And of course, $66.9 billion are to be spent on the XRL, and we've always questioned its cost effectiveness. We've asked for the shelving of this White Elephant project. Now we have been proved to be right, and in fact some internal documents have been exposed, and you said that many contractors have reflected to the MTR that the northern concourse of West Kowloon terminus are flawed in terms of the design, so there must be revisions. Therefore, for the first 16 months, they have already seen a slippage of 9 months. In other words, the slippage will be at least a year's time because they have to design while doing the construction. Now, we have always been assured that in 2015, the project will be completed. Now, it is said that we need to blame the rock nature. That is because work started. They had not found out enough information about the geological situation. Because of the granites there, they had to remove the rocks as well as the rock layers. They had to spend more time. They also blame it on the wet weather. They didn't follow the DSD's advice to have a gate to prevent flooding. As a result of heavy rain, a heavy machinery was damaged. So probably we have to wait until 2017 or later before we see the commissioning of the express train service. And then it was said that 10 years ago, piles had already been driven for housing development. There were 200 of them, and they had to be removed. And it is a waste of $860 million. And it wasn't something said by the secretary. In fact, they were exposed by the media. It was only when the deadline comes around and then it is found that they can't deliver on time. And in fact, he doesn't know. And we don't know whether he knows it or not. Last July, the MTR revised the estimate, and it should be an overrun of $6.5 billion. And then it was found that quite a number of items haven't been included. So MTR was asked to do the calculations again. It is said that probably it has gone up to over $80 billion. Today, the news says that it is $90 billion. Probably it will be over $100 billion.
We aren't sure about the actual overspending amount. It will go up and up. The latest information is that the material costs has reached a record high. So we're now having a bill of $90 billion, so 4 times the original estimate. But then the compensation amounts for MTRCL has been capped, deducting the $4.5 billion on the management fee, then it can't make up for the shortfall, and the government has to pay an extra $20 billion. The latest information shows that 63.3% of the works have been completed, and that is 2.3% less than the original estimate. So it have been delays after delays. And can we have it commissioned in November 2017? That's still a question mark. We have overspending after overspending and delay after delay. And the money all went down the drain. The return rate of XRL is just 6%. The delay will last 2 to 3 years, and it will come from public money. And overall, there will be $100 billion to be involved. It is a bottomless pit. This is a white elephant using public funds. There are so many reasons for the delay, and it's not the Professor Anthony Zhang, the only person who has to be blamed. But after he has assumed office, he has not tried to discover the mistakes, what MTRCL was trying to hide from us. So he has to be taken to task for that. The Professor Zhang is slow to respond and mistrusted the MTRCL's reports. And MTRCL is so complacent they thought that they could cover up the delays or catch up the delays, and they gave the MTRCL the benefit of the doubt. He's acting in a culture which is usually or common in the mainland, and he's forgot the usual practices in Hong Kong. Is there anyone who has deliberately concealed something? Has anyone been giving the benefit of doubt to the MTRC, or is there a deliberate concealment? Should he step down to be responsible? The Chow Tai-chong and Jay Walter and resigned early, and for health reasons. And there are media reports. Jay Walter has got at $17.5 million of gratuity on top of his $8.5 million in package. So a total of $25 million was given to him. Chow Tai-chong was given $6 million. The MTRCL said that Jay Walter's departure complies with the employment conditions, and because there are confidentiality provisions, so no more information could not be given. And the MTRC was let off. The government appointed 3 people to an IEP, independent expert panel. But then there was a joke. Lee Chuk-fan was accused of having a conflict of interest, and he resigned immediately from the panel. And we had to take Anthony Zhang to task for that as well. So we should hold Anthony Zhang accountable for this XLL project, and there are other projects, including, say, the Shorten Central Link, the SIL, and so on. And also for the third runway, I think we should also be holding Anthony Zhang responsible for that. Ms. Sitho. Thank you, Chairman. Just now, Mr. Raymond Chan, that it is a reasonable expectation that he can speak, say, once for one amendment. Well, that's a reasonable way of doing things. You shouldn't use the word reasonable expectation, just reasonable arrangement. You should not stuff everything into, say, 15 minutes. So, Chairman, I hope that with regard to the time allocation arrangement, please understand this. Even for an amendment involving the same head or subhead, there are different amendments, and they should be discussed separately. Mr. Raymond Chan said that he moved some 30 amendments. He was proposing cutting the STH salary by, say, by 1 year or half a year, and then he should be given the opportunity to discuss 2 times the 2 different amendments. But then Mr. Raymond Chan, don't speak on my behalf. And I'm going to speak on 2 amendments. Head 41, subhead 700, but then these are 2 different funding applications. Even for the Environmental Affairs Panel discussions, we were discussing those in 2 different separate meetings. So these 2 matters are not linked at all in any way. So, Chairman, first amendment, and that has to do with the cleaner production partnership program. The secretary who should be here is not here today. And a government official who's not been following up on the issue or who might not even jot notes here is here. So this shows the government's trying to evade its responsibility to be accountable to the electrical. I think I should be moving this amendment or discussing this at the FC because we have Q&As in the FC. But then I am just speaking to myself here. And these are all issues which will still be hanging in the air after I have spoken. Then I have to follow up with the ENB duly. Now, by way of background, this cleaner production partnership program is part of a green economy, and through some preventive measures, manufacturers can use better use raw materials, water resources to reduce pollution and enhance productivity. Under this new type of economic activity, waste can be minimized. So this is part of a green economy. In April 2008, the government allocated $93 million for this cross-boundary production CPP. So it helps Hong Kong investors who set up factories in Guangdong, and they can apply for funding to develop cleaner production processes and cut down on pollution, including the discharge of wastewater and air pollutants. And in 2012, December, some $50 million was ejected to extend the program to March 2015. So we are already past March 2015. Perhaps it's because of this that the government is subsuming this funding application within the budget. So government, why can't you act earlier? Why do you have to wait till the end of March? when all the funding has been exhausted and the extension deadline has been reached, and then in February, you presented a discussion paper to the panel and discussed it with us, and then you said that the timing was urgent, and you tried to bundle it together with the appropriation bill. So this is the system, the procedures, the mechanism. There are so many loopholes, and the whole system will fall apart because of this. I never doubt the current term of government having ulterior political motives with regard to environmental protection. But if you can foresee that this is coming, then to apply for funding from FC earlier, then you would avoid the situation where you are trying to undermine procedural justice. I think the program is successful, but I still have several questions. According to the government's paper, the discharge volume is quite good. The volatile organic has been cut by 13,000 tons, nitrogen dioxide and carbon dioxide, 1.5 million tons discharge, wastewater, 17.8 million tons. So we've got a list of all these amounts, but you haven't told me the benchmark or the baselines. If we don't have the baselines, so what is the percentage you're talking about here? 1%, 51%, or what? So, Chairman, shouldn't we be discussing all these details at the FC meetings? You give us just the information on the reduction volume, but there is no way we can monitor whether the $150 million spent is well spent and is a good value for money. And some electricity has been saved, and the participating factories are seeing a reduction in production costs as well. Now, the government has earmarked $150 million for the program, and there is this $1 to $1 matching arrangement. The manufacturers should be paying $1 to get the $1 from the government. So it's a one-to-one matching. So that means that we are spending $300 million into the program, and we are saving $1.7 billion on the program. This is the figures show that we should support the program. So with regard to the level of emission reduced, there is no information. We should be asking all these questions at the FC, but then this is the Secretary for Civil Service who is here. I hope that the Mr. Wong Kam-sheng can give us information through whatever channel you can use. Well, we're just asking for statistics and information, not information of a political nature. So the Secretary should be obliged to give information. So if you're not doing that, we should reprimand you as to how to measure the effectiveness. On top of this, we should also consider whether such green production methods can be turned into business opportunities. As I said, we both the government and the business have invested into the program a total of $300 million, and we can save up to $1.7 billion in costs. So we can turn these into business opportunities, and other businessmen can see what we are doing, and we can save costs. So that would be an incentive for them to participate in similar programs. So at the beginning stage, I think it's all right that if we put in public money, but at a later stage, if we can prove that the costs could be saved and there are profits to be netted, then so that means business opportunities. But the information, well, the paper doesn't mention anything on those points, whether we should head towards that direction. So should we be like the ITF, We just invest into it, and then we are getting back a very nominal patent charges or fees. And if the director of audit is going to study this issue, then he will probably find that we are not having good value for money. Now, coming back to this $300 million invested by both the government and the business sector, and next we would be making a commitment of a further $150 million, and then at the initial stage we'll be putting in $30 million first. And the government should be obliged to tell us this. Now, a businessman can cut down on costs out of the program, so the government should be trying to turn the program into something, into a business opportunity.
The government can let the Productivity Council to get on with the project on a self-financing basis instead of counting on taxpayers' money. Third, do we have any auditing? Chairman, I've got some friends who run factories in the mainland, and the environmental law can be a tool to collect benefits. The environment laws are very stringent, and there is a requirement of independent people to conduct the auditing. But they are more like bid rigging in Hong Kong. They will be singing karaoke in the evening. If you don't patronize them, you're not going to pass the bureaucrats' approval. And they are using taxpayers' money. This scheme is at the expense of taxpayers' money. Can we have any auditing? My factory owner friend told me that in the run-up to the Lunar New Year, they realized that you are struggling to meet the quota, and you will be slapped a big bill, a big penalty. And in order to struggle to produce, to get on with the production, they would be prepared to play along. Now, we want the production to be clean, but we don't really want the corruption culture to proliferate. So as long as a program is subsidized to the tune of 50% by taxpayers' money, there should be auditing to be conducted. We don't have any evidence at the moment regarding corruption, but that's all the more reason why we have to conduct some auditing to ascertain whether it is a hotbed for corruption. Chairman, I am a little bit concerned here because when it comes to cross-boundary issue, it would be rather difficult to grapple with. If the director of audit is to conduct auditing on the Cleaner Production Partnership Program, are we only allowed to conduct an audit on the party or certain party or all the parties concerned? Can we conduct on-site auditing? Can we have independent auditors to look at the production process to identify whether there are any areas which are fertile ground for corruption? So we have to put the question, since they are receiving subsidy from Hong Kong government, they should keep their account transparent to facilitate auditing by the local officials. And the whole account should be subject to scrutiny to establish the veracity of the data. Chairman, when it comes to cross-boundary cooperation, it is like a black box operation. Whether there are any minutes in the meeting with the mainland officials, they would say that things are highly technical and they don't have any record. And if you don't have any record, then the funding that we disperse, the $300 million, we are not sure what it is money well spent, where we are getting the money's worth, whether it is a hotbed for crimes, a hotbed for irregularities, we're not sure. I look forward to a reply from the Secretary for Environment. Mr. Chi-wai. Chairman. Head 000, subhead 60, seeking to reduce $2.395 million, and that's the equivalent to 4 months of pay for the Director of Highways. The reduction is because the Director of Audit has to be held responsible for the XRL. Last year, when it was announced that XRL couldn't meet the schedule, the government departments, including the Highways Department, the LWB, beg your pardon, the MTRC, they try to play down the issue. They blame everything on the communication problem. In order to stop us getting to the bottom of the truth, the government and MTRC resorted to various means. They got rid of 2 key figures, Mr. J. Warder and also Mr. Chu Tai-chong, and they've also asked the committee when seeking information regarding the committees, and on condition that the information will not be made public. Now, if the government is in the clear, why is it that they're so worried about the scrutiny? Why is it that they are not prepared to make available the information? Even if the details involve confidential information, they can redact the document so that we can still at least get hold of the discussion. In 2010, the Director of Highways was already imposed. He said in a hearing that there is a sophisticated system to monitor the project. But why is it that he basically said that it was the MTRC that failed to disclose all the details? Shouldn't there be a mechanism on the part of the Highways Department to unearth the problems? If they have to rely on the MTRC, then the experts are hired by the Highways Department. What are they doing? Chairman, in the export report, I quote, in July 2013, the consultant estimated that the completion date might experience a delay of 11 months, up to July 2016. But there is no sign to show that the Highways Department has taken any action to ask the MTRC to review the progress of the XRL Project Hong Kong section. End of quote. The Highways Director said that he did instruct the MTRC to submit a timetable, but from the public information, the MTRC really delayed the matter. There is no evidence that the Highways Department took any follow-up action. The expert report also pointed out, and I quote, that the Highways Department could have done more. They could have asked the MTRC to submit the latest information periodically regarding the projection of the completion date and also the delay recovery measures to make sure that the MTRC's undertaking is trustworthy. But the Highways Department didn't do that, and they're merely talking about the delay. Third, the expert panel didn't find any evidence to show that in April 2014, before the Highways Department conducted the review, exercise any independent judgment regarding the implementation of the work. There was no independent judgment on the part of the highways. How is it supposed to monitor the mega project on the part of the MTRC? The taxpayers are contributing so many resources for the highways to set up a panel to monitor the MTRC. Are we getting money's worth? The other thing is, in 2013, the MTRC proposed a partial opening to the Highways Department. When this was proposed, we didn't see any follow-up action taken by the Highways Department. Commonsensically, if there is a contractor which proposes partial completion, it would mean that there is a high likelihood that they would not be able to live up to their end of the bargain under the contract. Shouldn't the government review the situation, and that there might be a good chance that the completion date might not be achievable? Other than disagreeing with the partial opening, has the Highways Department taken any action to alert the THB that there's going to be a delay? What we see is that the THB in the two meetings in 2013 merely said that XRL could be completed in 2015. Although the actual operation will happen in 2016 because of all the testing. But even then, it is against the projected completion date in the agreement. In the agreement, the completion date is scheduled on the 4th of August 2015. So any changes, any possible slippage will involve a breach of the completion date, and this may give rise to some contractual dispute. On that score, has the Highways Department taken the matter seriously in his capacity as a supervisor? Has he alerted the relevant party of the possibility of any contractual disputes? If not, then has the Highways Department fallen down on its job as a supervisor? The Highways always said that compared with the West Kowloon station, the cross-boundary section is the priority of the project. If they can recover the delay with regard to the cross-boundary section, then the completion date can be achievable. Now, Mr. Hartman's committee report showed that there is no evidence to show that the MTRC has any procedures regarding measuring the effectiveness of the measure to recover delays. After the measures have been put in place, the situation got worse and worse. We cannot help casting doubt on the effectiveness of these measures. And that was the view of the expert panel led by Mr. Justice Hartman. Why is it the Highways Department can be so incredulous? If the MTRC cannot prove that all these the delay recovery measures are effective, then why is it that the Highways Department didn't give any warning and alert the THB? And why didn't they alert the THB that the delay recovery measures are likely to affect the actual completion date? After the announcement of the XR delay, I did write to the Highways Director and other officials regarding the experience of supervision. According to government's reply, the Highways directors experience or has a 4-year experience supervising the MTR work. Before the director took over the highway portfolio, he didn't have any experience regarding supervision of railway construction. For someone without any supervision experience, he should have been that much more careful in assessing whether the progress report submitted by the MTRC, whether the delay recovery measures submitted by the MTRC, whether they are effective or not. He may not have the intimate knowledge, but he should have instructed the 13 construction experts to submit relevant information to him, so they would have sufficient information to judge what the situation is.
And alert the THB in time, but we haven't seen the Director of Highways exercising caution and directing the expert panel under the Railway Development Division to provide sufficient information to the government so as to judge whether the progress of XRL is in line with the requirement. In fact, if we take a good look, well, in fact, the engineer responsible for the Railway Development Division 2 and 3, they have had a term of 4 years. In other words, the engineers have this project as their first project. Of course, the Director of Highways has said that it is teamwork. But then from our information, it shows that after the merger of the two railway corporations, most of those who have been experienced in railway projects have been absorbed by the MTRCL. Do we have sufficient expertise within the government to oversee the projects? If they are not, then I think they should have exercised even greater degrees of care and scrutinize the documents submitted by the MTRCL. And also, they should understand that they have responsibilities as a supervisor. They should have demanded more detailed information from the MTRCL so as to understand whether the delay recovery measures and whether the cost overrun are really something that can be sort of resolved and addressed. I think the Director of Highways, as far as overseeing the railway development is concerned, hasn't really discharged his duties. Mr. Chairman, today in the news, it has been reported that for the XRL, probably the cost will be escalated to $90 billion from $60 billion plus. As to who will finally be picking up the bill, I think the Director of Highways is duty-bound, and it is a very important duty for him to justify why he hasn't given advance warning about cost overrun and slippage. He should have made sure that the STH has got sufficient information about this. Probably later on in the hearing, more will be exposed. I think from the experts' report, we can see that the Director of Highways hasn't really exercised sufficient supervision. Of course, for the slippage and cost overrun of the XRL, it isn't just a matter of unsatisfactory performance of the Director of Highways. It also involves the government's past assurance that there will be co-location of facilities so as to allow us to have cost effectiveness and economic benefits. Now, we have yet to be convinced that there will be co-location of boundary crossing facilities so as to make sure that the XRL is efficient. So if we haven't got co-location of facilities, and given the cost overrun and nobody is going to bear responsibility, then I'm afraid that ultimately the XRL will find it difficult to get the agreement of the community to pay supplementary provision. So I think the Director of Highways should bear a large degree of responsibility. He has failed in his job. He has failed to give us advance warning. Therefore, I'm moving an amendment to cut his pay so as to exercise our right of monitoring and the accountability system. Dr. K.K. Kwok. I'd like to talk about Amendment 584, that is to cut 6 months' pay of the estate. I think today we understand that there is fresh information about cost overrun and project slippage about the XRL. We all know that despite the controversies, despite the disagreement, and despite all the lack of answers to our queries, the government ramped through the project. The first estimate was $66.9 billion. Today, the figure will approach $90 billion and cost overrun of 40%. What is worse is that we don't know when the service can be commissioned. The government firmly assured us that the XRL project could go ahead, and it was said that the West Kowloon terminus is something which is excellent. But in fact, for the West Kowloon terminus site, no ground investigation has been taken up. Now it is found that the soil or the rock is too hot. It is outrageous. You can't blame it on the rock nature. Now the government say that it can't finish the terminus, and it's all because the rock layers are too hot. We're talking about $90 billion. In other words, tens of thousands of dollars per capita. And yet we don't know when we're going to get the railway and whether it is going to be useful. Time and again, many people have said that we need the co-location facilities, and yet it hasn't been made certain. In other words, probably it is not an express rail. It may be a slow rail. In other words, we are pouring $90 billion down the drain, so it is but a white elephant project. Under one country, two systems, Hong Kong was supposed to have our own way of doing things, that is, will be pragmatic. Unfortunately, throughout the nation, everybody was trying to embark on white elephant projects. We just want to have grand projects. We were not too sure about the technical feasibility. We were not sure about the co-location facilities. And no one was certain about the economic benefits. So despite all the uncertainties, the government insisted on going ahead. We were told that there will be huge economic benefits and that there wouldn't be any cost overrun. Now, with hindsight, we can see that they were empty promises. This is because we have committed $90 billion. Are we going to get value for money in return? Are we going to get the rate of return promised? No one can tell. Of course, we don't just set our eyes on a rate of return, but at least it must be something feasible. At least it won't have any risk, won't have any harm done to the community. We want to cut the pay of the Secretary for Transport and Housing. I have some sympathy for Professor Jiang because before he took up the post, he didn't know much about transport and housing. And for the XRL project, it was a project already committed by the former term government, and he has to deal with the project. But then he's part of the accountability system. He's one of the principal officials. He has this political responsibility, so he has no one to blame. And no one would have sympathy for him. We have seen time and again blunders in this transport portfolio. We find it something tragic. Last year, Professor Zheng said that he was surprised by the slippage. But then we are surprised to find that, in fact, the government knew it all along. In June last year, the government knew that the XR project could not be delivered in time. And in fact, we had to postpone it until 2016. Professor Zheng should have known it. But probably he hasn't got the political courage to admit it. So he had to disguise himself as someone who didn't know. Well, the MTRCL had blamed the black storm, rainstorm warning signal, damaging the boring machine, or the soil or the rock layer was too hard. Now the contractors, of course, would try to take advantage of this. Therefore, the contractors are insisting that more money should be spent. Now, for this kind of tendering, we are sort of acting like an ATM machine for the contractors, because the government has to underwrite everything. Whatever they demand of us, they will get it. Not to mention that they know that we are beating a deadline. 2015, no, 2016, now 2017. So they will just push harder. They are demanding more money. For the taxpayers' money, we earned it in a hard way, and yet they have been squandered by the government. Last time I said that we have no hope about universal retirement protection. We haven't got enough healthcare services. Now for the grassroots, they want to get at least something from the government, and yet the government won't give it to them. Now for the White Elephant projects, it doesn't matter. We should embark on more. And for the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, we know that the project is suffering from cost overrun. When what is worse is that the mainland section and the Hong Kong section may not be able to interface and be connected. That would be the largest laughingstock in the world. Now there are more to it. For the THB, there is another time bomb. That is, we are going to get the third runway. For the third runway, now they're even more ambitious. They need more money, $140 billion. Now, for the runway, I think the most basic question is, after the construction, will there be landing and departure movements possible? Now, the airport authority is telling us that come winter, the two runways will reach the capacity limit, that is 68 movements per hour. Back in 1992, when they came to get money from the LegCo, didn't they assure us that the maximum number would be 82 movements per hour? They got the money, they built it. Sorry, it's not possible, it's not feasible. 4 northward routes are not possible out of the original 6 because of the airspace management. Now, if we could have resolved that problem, then the upper limit would not have been 68, it should have been 82, because back then we were told that there should have been 82 movements per hour. Now, they are going along, and they are sort of trying to outwit us. They want to bypass the LegCo. They're not going to pay dividends to the government. They would rather issue their own bonds, and they're going to impose a levy on each and every passenger because they don't allow us to block them. But who's going to foot the final bill? It would be the Hong Kong citizens. For the $50 billion benefits, who's going to get the profits? we're supposed to get the profits. We're going to get the $50 billion so that we can spend it on other urgently needed projects. Now, we haven't been told how they arrive at the figure of $140 billion. Will there be cost overrun? No, they are not going to answer the questions. The government is being most irresponsible. The design hasn't been thoroughly thought through. We haven't got a technical feasibility study, and we don't know whether eventually the aircraft can take off and land. Because we haven't got an agreement, how come that the government can degenerate into such a stage and in such a poor state? So, Professor Zhang, if we talk about the accountability system, I think Anthony Zhang should be held responsible. Yes, as a scholar, I think usually scholars should demand our respect. But then nowadays, he swapped his roles.
He was trying to defend all these mistakes and maladministration. He even lied last year over the incident of the XRL. That showed he was lying. So why should we pay him his salary in full? Also, for our transport policies, apart from these major infrastructure projects, transport policies related to everyday livelihood are equally bad. MTRCL was funded out of taxpayers' money and is now become a listed company. In 2014, it netted a profit of $13 billion. We paid for this company to be established, and now they are asking for a fair hike. They don't need approval from the LegCo and even the EXCO, because they have this fair adjustment mechanism, and they can increase the fees whenever they like. We've said many times that it's impossible that this rail network funded from taxpayers' money and also used by most people in Hong Kong can resort to tactics like those. Sometimes it pretends that it's not a commercial organization. If we want to build extensions, they would say that they would not build them unless they are profitable. They are asking the government to pay all the money, then we will manage the railways for you. But then, if they have got the profits, then they just suddenly became a commercial organization. The CEO made a mistake, lied, and cheated the LegCo, the public. How much do we have to compensate him? $30 million. The government is totally ineffective. Just an outrageous organization, structure, and we are compensating him for $30 million for a person who is ineffective and lied. And we have this new CEO, a local, and he's also getting dozens of millions of dollars. How can that be? Well, they can claim that they are a commercial organization if they like, and then if they want to get money from the government, they say that they are providing public service. And we've asked this many times. Shouldn't the government privatize the MTRCL at an appropriate time? The government said no, because if it is going to be done, then the government doesn't have the excuse to change its cap whenever it likes. When you look at MTRCL, it has got many land plots, and we hope that the land plots can be used for building residential buildings for the average man on the street. But they are building all these luxurious apartments. They are making a record of that. Look at West Kowloon residential development. All these are luxurious apartments. Well, they are occupied not by Hong Kong people, but the speculators, the rich from the mainland. They're not for the average citizen. Tin Ming Station, the tender was aborted several times. We asked whether they can be the plot could be turned into building HOS. They said no, because if we build HOS, then that will help some people in need in Hong Kong. Well, they said no. They would try to help the property developers to maximize their profits. And then the MTRCL is also maximizing its profits. Well, the government seems to be having a psychosis problem. It's sick. So Hong Kong has topped the list of 10 cities or places in the world with the highest property prices. In 2014, it's 17, the rank, and it's 17% higher than Vancouver. And compared to the 10th place, well, we all know London has high property prices. So perhaps I would wait for the next round to talk about property issues again. Mr. Chairman, head 138, 158, 159 head. I would speak on those two heads. First, about the Development Bureau. Even ICAC let Paul Chan off. Paul Chan was still alleged to have hoarded land, to have owning subdivided flats. His image will be here to stay with us. ICAC let him off, but then he's still known as a person who has hoarded land, owned subdivided units. We all remember these facts about him. Well, it's better for him to stay as a electoral member, but then he chose otherwise, to be a government official. In 2015 appropriation bill, the 6th May, the government official attending from 8 to 8, and then there are different government officials attending these 2 dates, sessions. Several directors will be here. But for this whole afternoon, I've only seen the Secretary for Civil Service. Now, after he has been criticized by many members, and Professor Zhang now appeared. So I'm not criticizing or slamming you at the session. Well, Albert Chan slammed you for 15 minutes just now. For this session, I'm talking about Development Bureau. I will also speak on THB. Well, now you're here. Actually, I've moved an amendment to cut your salary. THB, you've not been doing the right things. The chairman said that this debate will last 11 hours only, but I can speak for at least 2 hours, 8 rounds. Well, look at my past records. Have I been criticized for repeating myself, filibustering just for the sake of filibustering? Well, my assistants has worked very hard to prepare all the speaking notes for me. Well, you are here now, XRL 3rd runway. So much has to do with you. And when I asked for an interview with you, you disregarded me. Well, allow me 50 minutes to criticize you here. Well, but then I didn't prepare to speak on you at this round. Anyway, I will say something about it. On the 6th of June 2014, the FC scrutinized the funding application for the advanced works for NENT. The government didn't respond directly to the resumption of land, the disappearance of the borders. All these issues have not been tackled. The pro-establishment camp forced through the funding application and proved it. And demonstrators came in and stormed the electrical building and sat on the floor within the building. And the electrical commission ultimately had to call in the police to take over the security work at electrical complex. There are 1 to 2 incidents related to myself. The chief security officer, well, again, in the same NENT incident at the FC during the scrutiny period, and one of those meetings, and he called through the walkie-talkies, asking the security guards not to allow me to leave. I've written so many times to the Electoral Commission, but ultimately you decided to let him off. I would take you to task on that. I will publish a book. I will not prosecute you because the procedures would be too cumbersome. And all these stem from the funding application at the FC on NENT. And it highlights all the problems with the executive arms, and also the dignity of the electoral has been compromised, and also sought a judicial review, and the case will be heard in June at the court. So what is this all for? Sometimes I ask myself what I'm driving at to put myself in such a sorry state. So how come that they let you off, poor Chen? NENT development area included Kwok-hung North, Fanling North, Pingche, Takuling, near to the border at Shenzhen. The government decided to give up the Pingche and Takuling and concentrated on Kwok-hung North and Fanling North. And in July 2013, the ODP was released. PODP, and we are very concerned about the ratio of public housing and also the situation with the border. Some groups queried that in the plans, 750 hectares of land will be developed, and villages, dozens of villages have to be wiped out. Farmland had to be disappearing as a result. And only 5% of the land resumed will be used for building public housing. And the pro-establishment camp was criticizing us for standing in the way of building public housing. Well, give us all the figures. Well, their comments do not hold water. I think this is most outrageous. From the preliminary development plan, the ratio has been adjusted to 60-40, and Fanling North and Kwok-hung North will provide a total of 60,000 units, 36 and 600 subsidized housings, and 41,000 private units to accommodate a total population of 174,000 people. The government's intention of developing NENT was ultimately to provide private residential units, and they are giving priority to private property developers' interest. And it's only under public pressure that they changed the ratio, raised the public housing ratio. The government has been lying all the time. Do you think we would believe that you would come up or deliver your promise, providing 36,000 units? Well, honestly, I myself, for one, would not believe in you. And also some members have reminded the government should not repeat the mistake made in Chi-wai. We should not put too many PRH units in one area. I don't think this is the point here. The long-term housing strategy steering committee also said that the government should develop another new town like Sha-tin which is self-sufficient. The failure of Chi-wai has nothing to do with density, but rather unbalanced urban planning there. The government said that for the NDA there, use will be made of the activities with border, and 37,000 jobs will be provided in the retail and other commercial sectors. And Kwok-hung North and Fanling North, there will be a 14-hectare plot will be used for commercial office use and R&D purposes, and to support industries which have an advantage in Hong Kong. I don't agree with the government's industrial policy. Provided the government is still concentrating on the industry, so-called, with a disadvantage, they should go back to the basics, and they should model after, say, Singapore to develop more agricultural policy. If that is not done, I don't believe the industrial policy will come to success. Now, if the government goes along this present approach, it is bound to create more Chi-wais in Hong Kong. That's about NENT. And the second point that I would like to make is the border between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. NENT is adjacent to the border, and people are worried that there will be a sort of a project to integrate Hong Kong and Shenzhen. And in June, as a CE hopeful, Chi-wai said that the border can become a special area within the SAR, and people can enter the area visa-free. And Tai Kung-pao also quoted some officials saying that following the development of NENT, the border will be developed more actively, and Kwok-hung North and Fanling North will dovetail with the development at the border areas, and they would be providing residential buildings there. The government's response is that such alleged allegations are groundless, and the flats to be built are suitable for small and medium-sized flats, and also the jobs are there for Hong Kong people, and the government doesn't have any plan to open up the frontier closed areas and to try to integrate Hong Kong and Shenzhen. So I think the government had a lot more explanation to do. And C.Y. Leung, with regard to third runway, Hong Kong, Zhuhai, Macau Bridge, individual visit scheme, and so on, well, he showed that he's totally inclined towards the Chinese mainland.
It is hard to have any faith in him. This C.Y. Leung is out and out a communist. We have the Secretary for Transport and that the Secretary for Development has been let off the hook by the ICAC. He should be coming here overjoyed, and I'm wondering whether he is very busy. We've seen Casey Chen. We haven't seen Greg So. The SCS has just left. His term, his shift has ended. Mr. Anthony Cheung may be here till 8. I think if time permits, I'm going to press the button and say something about you. But I've got a whole heap of paper regarding the Development Bureau. The government is going to have an enhanced approach regarding the new town development. There will be land exchange, and I think the government has really succumbed or caved in to the landowners, the developers that own a lot of land, and the government will be acquiring 70% of land owned by private owners, and they have to follow particular guidelines imposed by the administration, and facilities will be provided to make sure that the landowners will be given a fair treatment. Over the years, the colonial government has been condoning the developers to accumulate the land, and the developers are hoarding the land, and this is an anomaly in Hong Kong. When you are planning for development, you would be at the disposal of the developers. The government is proposing this controversial NENT project. Why is it the government has degenerated into such a situation? They are at the mercy of the conglomerates. Even if C.Y. Leung doesn't win the hearts and minds of the developers, it should do something about the situation. But the government continues to be a rightist government. If the government has enough land in the NT, it should be able to get on with the development. It doesn't have to develop Kwok-hung and NT NENT, and it is depicted as a fantastic development, but the people who are affected by the development would be struggling. The government is acquiescing the landowners to pull a fast one. Before a consensus is reached, the government is advertising the project on TV. The government is not engaging the public for discussion on the merits or demerits of the project, whether it is able to get it off the ground. It is not a discussion. The government is advertising the project on TV. These local landowners or the rural landowners, we've seen how they behave, and this is not the right way to discuss public policy. Professor Anthony Cheung, you're an academic. I wonder why you want to work for this government. Dr. Priscilla Leung. Chairman, I'm against 9744 head 000 to reduce the personal emoluments of the EPD staff. Chairman, the Environmental Bureau and the EPD should not see their pay reduced. If anything, their resources should be increased. Chairman, since the last term, I have been seeking to improve the water quality in the Victoria Harbour. I did move a motion debate, and I did put oral questions on this very subject. Together with Professor Ho Kin Chong of the Open University, we set up a campaign to establish some indices for the water quality in the Victoria Harbour. In particular, we have restored the Cross Harbour swimming contest, and there is dredging. There is a need for dredging. There is a need for cooperation with various departments before we can see an improvement in water quality in the Victoria Harbour. Chairman, as councillor myself, I've helped the West Kowloon, Tai Kok Tsui, Hong Ham, To Kwa Wan, and the Hoi Sam Park to improve the water quality. The stench is really intolerable in some of these areas. I did say that the Victoria Harbour is one of the best assets that we have. It's just like a pretty lady who has body odor, and it is so off-putting. We are promoting this WKCD, and the water quality would be inseparable from the WKCD. We simply cannot ignore the odor emanating from the Victoria Harbour. I am a complainer myself. I am from the NT West, and as a complainant, I wrote to the EPD on more than one occasion. As a resident myself, I would go for morning walk at 6 in the morning. Before I go to bed, I can smell the horrible odor from the vessels, from my corridor, from my balcony. I asked Professor Ho, and I was told that this is the result of the fuel leakage from the passing vessels. And this is happening to my constituency as well. Here in this council, we talked about the odor in the Victoria Harbour. The EPD has been doing quite a lot. Together we visited Tai Kwok Tsui, and we visited one of the buildings there to look at the water quality. We found that it's not just the EPD alone that can resolve the problem. we have to bring in the Marine Department and also the HAD because of expedient connection. The Buildings Department and Drainage Services Department, all of them have to be brought in. And the EPD seems to find themselves in a helpless situation. This has to do with the Development Bureau as well. In Hong Kong, I remember one of the motion debate that I sponsored was to have persistent improvement of our waterfront. This has to do with the STH. When I was a councillor in 2007, it was a waste piece of land, and then subsequently the waterfront was linked up all the way to Tsim Sha Tsui. Mrs. Carrie Lam visited the place, and she was so happy about it. In this picture, there is a pier. The Development Bureau would be only too delighted to revitalize the pier. It was the THB that was getting in the way. The pier has been around for years. Whenever I visit the waterfront, I can't help asking why we're not utilizing the wonderful resources there. A lot of residents are signing a petition to revitalize the pier. Maybe we can put some art space there or some kiosks, and we can subsidize the ferry, and this can be part of the tourism package. And the question is whether we should restore that ferry service. Now, I visited the place last Saturday. A lot of complaints came in. On Saturday, I walked all the way from Hong Kong to Tsim Sha Tsui. We wrote to the Buildings Department. In the capacity of the District Council, I was told that there are 20 expedient connections, 17 have been fixed. There are 5 that emitting horrendous odor. A lot of people are jogging there. A lot of people morning walking there, and the odor comes in intermittently. I think it has to do with law enforcement and inspection. Once I've sponsored the motion debate in 2012. The government responded to LegCo that legislation has been put in place to regulate the leakage of the vessel field. If you look at this photo taken at Hong Kong Pier, I visited a number of areas together with Professor Ho, Tai Kok Tsui, Hong Kong. The situation is pretty serious in Tai Kok Tsui. We visited Kwun Chung, To Ka Wan, Lai Chi Kok, Cheung Sa Wan. And this is a recent picture I took. Is it because there are less complaints and therefore the situation is getting worse? And I find myself having to keep up the complaints at LegCo, and this is something that cannot be tolerated. You may say that the penalty can be as much as $1 million, or there can be an imprisonment of 1 year. But according to the record, the penalty was the highest was $500,000. Dr. Leung, I think you have strayed off the subject. Chairman, it has to do with the EPD. In this debate, I don't think you should be focusing on one particular incident or one particular issue that you consider the government has committed a blunder. Please make it brief. Chairman, I appreciate that. This is a classic example. The government made a response to us. They said that once the legislation is in place, it should be okay. I'm telling you that things are not hunky-dory after the legislation has been in place. Now, we said that there should be waterfront for the members of the public, and I don't think that the pay should be docked at all. There is a pilot scheme for 4 districts at West Kowloon, Kowloon East, Central, and Wan Chai Causeway Bay. Instead of taking away their resources, we should increase the resources for them. I hope that these pilots can be extended to the NT as soon as possible, and I hope that the NT residents would like to see the pilot extended beyond these 4 districts. I'm glad that West Kowloon is included, though. I hope the resources should be increased for the ENB. In the policy address, the chief executive also settled some problems. Now, he mentioned the water-friendly culture in the policy address. The EPD did approach me and Professor Ho about how this water-friendly culture should be implemented. Other than purifying the water, there should be resources, and there should be more power given to the ENB to coordinate all the other bureaus like the Marine Department, HAB, DSD, Housing Department, and also the HAD.
What's most important about this water-friendly policy is that, all right, in Tsim Sha Tsui, we have already got the waterfront, but then when you try to walk from Tsim Sha Tsui to Kwok-hung, there is odor, and also after Kai Tak is connected with To Kwa Wan, again, there would be odor from the sewage. So a lot of these problems have been raised, but then I think in the long run, in fact, we should put in more resources. Well, during the past 3 years or so, when we debated the budget, I always said that we would have to put in resources other than commissioning a consultancy study for the Environment Bureau. We have to improve water quality. It's like what we talk about medical and education, because water quality affects everybody, and therefore whenever there is a surplus, we should put in $10 billion to improve the overall water quality in and around Victoria Harbour. In June 2014, this pilot scheme started in the form of a consultancy report. I believe that the consultancy report should not just be for 2 years. And was it because of a lack of money? I'm not sure. But then at the Environmental Affairs panel meeting, I said that, well, with inadequate resources, then that's not good enough. So with regard to water quality in the policy address, the CE talk about a water-friendly culture, and we should not just be putting in so few resources, so little resources for the report. And instead of cutting their pay, I think in the long run, we should put in more resources for that purpose. So other than purifying seawater, I'd like to raise this because it involves different policy bureaus. So along the waterfront, if you want people to get close to the water, for example, you can consider allowing water taxis to cross the harbour, so that that could also help ease the traffic congestion, and visitors and elders can travel from Tsim Sha Tsui to To Kwa Wan, and even for the cruise terminal visitors, passengers, they can also go to different districts by sea. So please do not give up the waterfront. So please be prepared to listen to some suggestions from the community, so that for the cruises, they can also be turned into, or for the ferries, they can also be turned into water taxis. So I think that would also help promote the water-friendly culture. Mr. Deputy, the reason why I raised this suggestion, that's because I hope that in the ENB there can be more resources, and the THB might also need more resources, so that on this issue they can think about how they can help revitalize the ferry services, in particular for the more popular routes in the urban area, and also the launching of water taxi service. So these are my remarks. Next, Mr. Kwok-hung. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. After listening to what Priscilla Leung just said, well, I think it's like the famous quote, why don't they eat cake? Yes, we have to be concerned about many things, and the first thing that I'd like to raise, okay, Mr. Anthony Cheung is here. Of course, we have to talk about traffic and transport. When it comes to transport, just yesterday, there was a public hearing. I'm not sure if the Bureau Director was aware of that. It's about increasing the number of seats on minibuses, and some 100 or so deputations came here to talk to us about that. This is just a very trivial issue. So it's just about increasing the number of seats from 16 to 20. And still, they had to make very loud voices about this. All right, Chi-wai Leung, when he took office, he also told us in his manifesto about what he was going to do. So what did he say in his manifesto? Well, let me read that out. So in his political manifesto on land planning and transport, item 18. So what did he say? Let me read that out. Coordinating railway, tram, bus, residential coach buses, so that there can be division of labor amongst the various modes of transport, and to assist the transport sector to deal with the problem of rising costs and shortage of labor. Okay, so he would coordinate. And minibuses ranked number 5, railway bus, tram, residential coach buses, and then minibuses. So if you can coordinate, then you really need to help them solve those problems. So he should have done a comprehensive review or consultation, and there are 6 stakeholders here. So setting aside ferries. And Mr. Frankie Yik of this council, according to what he said, well, after assuming office, he actually asked you to do this, and he also moved some motion debates, getting majority support from this council, urging the government to do something about it. So, Bureau Director, is it that you were not aware of such a motion being carried, or is it that Chi-wai Leung just treated his manifesto as toilet paper or toilet roll in a toilet, so that he would just dispose of it after use? So this is a trivial matter, and still he has failed to do it. And of course, when I confronted you the other day, that is, if the MTRCL were to fail or had indeed deceived the entire government, in other words, they did not inform you of the cost overrun, and they did not inform you about the delay in commissioning and so on. So who should be held accountable for that? And 2 persons would have to leave as a result of that. So that's in the MTRCL, but then they had to be given a golden handshake before they left. In other words, they had to get the contractual bonus, and there is no way that you can prove that they had done it, they had got it wrong. You have not proven them wrong. So this really, this drama involving the WKT of the XRL has now come to a close. And then for the staff who have been blamed by the community, they are senior management of the MTRCL. All right, they would just ignore the criticisms, and then they would get off with the handsome payment. So we ask you to be accountable, and the only thing that we can do is to go after you, because the MTRCL is supposed to be an independent body. And when we want to see heads rolling, then there would be loyalists coming forward saying that we should not put all the blame on the Bureau Director. So Bureau Director, you really have to respond to this. Who should be held liable? Was it that the MTRCL had lied, or was it you who had lied? And on the design and build and operate, that is the DBO, is it really well established and time-honored? I've never heard that an enterprise would be running its own business, and then it's for the government to guarantee that it would have the necessary funding to build it, and upon completion, in fact, they will be designing and building together with external parties. Well, in the business community, that would not have been the case. And what's more is that they would have to charge us 5%, that's our sweat money, and even if there were incidents, they would not be held liable. So what kind of government is this? And what kind of enterprise is this? And what kind of council is this? I've never heard it. Well, there was not even a consultative meeting, and when we invited you to come, you did not come. And then it's about having a few more seats on board of the minibus. And still, after so many years, nothing has come about. And then for the major issue, apparently, you are at wit's end without being able to do anything. Okay, for the buildings department, during the last session, I was trying to go after them, but then Mr. Chairman, he tried to escalate everything, so I did not have a chance to do it. All right, with regard to subdivided flats, in particular in industrial buildings, well, the problem is not just about UBWs. So the problem of subdivided flats is about housing or the lack of it. So we have a large number of hardworking people, and they are not able to afford the high rents, and then they can just close their eyes and go into these very substandard housing involving UBWs. And it's very different from UBWs in the new territories. There's no question of people being greedy. That's why they are subdividing these flats. Well, for those who are greedy, they are fortunate because they know how to deal with the government. It's like what the Bible says. Carrie Lam said that she would deal with this problem, and it has nothing to do with you, even though it might be marginally related to you. All right, Carrie Lam said that she was determined to deal with the problem of UBWs in the new territories. But then, what is happening now? There are 5-6 stories, small houses, and have they been touched at all? Is it that those buildings would not fall, causing injuries or casualties? All right, for those who are greedy, they are fortunate. But then, for those who are poor, they are unfortunate because the subdivided flats have to be demolished, and the house and the building department would not be asking the THB so that they can be allocated public rental housing or whatever. So what is happening is, well, poor people live in subdivided flats, and they are displaced. But then for the rich people in the new territories, they have got UBWs, and still they are proud of it. What kind of government is this? Moreover, you might have been misled too, because when Carrie Lam stepped down from the post of Bureau Director of the Development Bureau, and after Paul Chan took over as the Bureau Director for Development, all right, he told Carrie Lam that he would have to come up with a plan to improve industrial buildings, and some 10,000 enhanced units will be provided. So the Bureau Director made the grand promise, and yet nothing has come about it. But then you have made a pledge that you are going to do it. So the Buildings Department made a pledge or promise to do it. And yet there is a large number of poor people. They will be displaced. They will be rendered homeless. Have you ever thought about this? Have you ever considered how they can be rehoused? And have you talked to the Secretary for Development as to how these people should be rehoused? All right, Buildings Department is saying that it's none of my business because my responsibility is just to tear down these UBWs. And then if you have anything, then you will have to approach the THB. All right, we only have one government. We don't have 4 governments here. At least Carrie Lam should have intervened. She should have asked about what needs to be done for these people, because before she stepped down, she was very tough, and she said that she's a good fighter and she would tear down all these UBWs. But then what is happening now? So this is just one of the examples. Mr. Deputy, in NT Northeast, again the same happens. 4,000 square hectares of, those owning more than 4,000 hectares of land would be eligible for compensation. In other words, you're talking about people owning more than 40,000 square meters of land. Only those people would be able to make a fortune out of their land in the new territories. But then for the poor people renting or renting those land, they would be chased away. So they would be evicted.
In fact, I've said many times that the idea of developing Northeast NT is feasible, but there is one precondition, and that is you are not afraid that developers will invoke upon Article 105 of the Basic Law. We'll be able to have available lots of land, and poor people now living there will not be affected. But then you will not do this because you do not want to antagonize developers. And for the Northeast NT, under the proposed development plan, only 5% of the land will be used for PRH development. How can that be? So the government will be using 95% of the land to solve a problem that it has never mentioned. And it's going to use 5% of the land to solve a problem which the government has claimed to be the greatest problem in Hong Kong. Now I go to Ho Man Tin every week to play soccer. Do you know that the price or the price per square foot of a flat there is over $30,000? There used to be a PRH public housing estate, but then for part of Ho Man Tin Estate and Kwok-hung Estate and many other public housing estates in the urban area, the government, have turned these sites into sites for luxurious housing development. Why do you need to provide land to build luxury flats? Why is it that the sites available are not used for PRH development? Do you know that many Hong Kong people are living under extremely crowded living conditions? So you adopt the same approach for the urban area, for the extended urban areas, and also for areas that are to be developed. So I think you should understand why young people are all against you. Will they be able to afford the flats that will be provided under the Northeast NT development? Secretary, you are a high-ranking official, but at the same time, you are an academic. And please answer all these questions that we have. In fact, I have a lot to say on these subjects. But then the President, Jasper Zhang, decided to limit the time that we could get. And so as a result, we can only always go through the motion in this council. Mr. Albert Chan, in the last round, I criticized the STH. At that time, he was not in the chamber. Now he is in the chamber. I, in the last round, said that Anthony Cheung did not do his job well. He did not live up to his promise. He was afraid to antagonize interest groups. And I think it's a disaster for the housing and transport development of Hong Kong that we have such a person being the STH. You are responsible for land transport, public transport, and also sea transport. And I think because you are not a capable secretary, developments on all these fronts will suffer. There was overspending concerning the XRL. The secretary was not forthcoming. He did not tell Hong Kong people the whole truth. He suggested that there would be overspending to the tune of billions of dollars. But then at that time, I boldly said that the cost overrun might go up to $100 billion. Now, because for previous railway projects, the cost overrun was from 30% to 50%. When Eva Chang was the secretary, I pointed out to her that the XRL had 3 problems. First of all, hasty planning, insufficient planning. There was insufficient information to base on for the planning. And second, because of time and financial constraints, site investigations were not done thoroughly. And then thirdly, I in fact asked Eva Chang this question, but she gave a vague reply, and that was in relation to the agreement between the Hong Kong government and the MTRCL, because I pointed out at the time that the entrustment agreement was extremely important. The Railway Corporation was responsible for the design and also site investigation, and so if the entrustment agreement was not clear or was not in order, there would be a lot of problems. So the entrustment agreement was signed between an ignorant and inexperienced bureau and a very cunning party. I remember during the British colonial days, it was proposed that the 10 airport core projects would be constructed, and the government commissioned a team of overseas experts to set up a dedicated office to manage the projects and to prepare and draft the tender documents. So I pointed out at that time that because of the 3 major defects, there would be serious delay and overspending concerning the XRL. And in fact, I think we should all feel grateful if the ultimate bill is only $100 billion and not more. Hong Kong was returned to China 17 years ago, and I think the greatest success we've achieved since 1997 is that we are getting more like China. Andy Zhang said a couple of days ago that the police force was the best in the world. Yes, it used to be the best. But because of Andy Zhang's leadership, this is no longer a good police force. This is a notorious police force. Many young people were arrested when they were innocent, and one young person, in fact, even committed suicide yesterday. So this secretary, in fact, is incapable and is afraid of antagonizing interest groups. Is the Bureau in a position to monitor all the railway projects, including the XRL, the WIL, the SCL, and so on and so forth? And is it that the MTRCL will also be responsible for constructing the EFLS in Kowloon East? Or is it that the Bureau will be monitoring such works, but then the Bureau is ignorant in railway matters, and so I believe we're going to have another disaster soon. The Bureau has failed in its duties to monitor the construction of the XRL. On a number of occasions, the Secretary has withheld the truth from the public. And I think this Secretary should shoulder political accountability. But then he has decided to learn from C.Y. Leung. He now is inclined to give vague replies and vague remarks. And in fact, he was extremely vague when he talked about when the XRL could be commissioned. I want to say that there are numerous problems associated with the XRL chairman, and I am worried that there will be more and more scandals, and the public will become more and more angry, and the taxpayers will have to shoulder a larger and larger amount. But Chairman, I think I'm a bit out of breath because I have spoken for quite some time. So please, under 17.3, ask those members who have played truant to come back.
陳偉業議員。
Mr. Albert Chen. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. As I was saying, the financial commitment for the XRL is estimated to be $90 billion, but I believe it will be over 100 million sooner or later. And the 3RS of the airport will only be more expensive. Already, XRL is not really an express rail. The speed cannot live up to the standard of the mainland because to be qualified as an express rail, the speed must be up to a certain level. And once the railway enters Hong Kong, it will have to go underground, and it can for sure not go as fast as originally planned. And if you look at the 3RS, the financial or the cost effectiveness is even more tragic, because we may end up not having half of the runway, because usually for a runway it will allow 4 possible directions for both taking off and landing. First, for this railway, it can't have 4 directions. Whether we will end up having 4 or 2 or 1, it is still a question mark. So it is a wrong decision. And the Secretary has said more than once in public that it can bring $4 trillion in financial benefits. It is questionable as to whether this is realistic. It may well be a lie again, because the economic benefits can only be worked out with a lot of projections. Many projections proved to be wrong, such as the development of Deep Bay. The traffic gets lower and lower. And for the cruise terminal, we spent a lot of money on it, and yet it is now idle for most of the time. In the recent 10 years, we have seen many major infrastructure projects, and for many of them, it's been proved after commissioning that the projections were not really correct. So the administration is governing Hong Kong with lies. In the past, there might be some maladministration in the Zhang's administration. There might be some incorrect assessments due to unforeseeable factors. In the past, I believed that they were due to wrong assessments or due to some reasons. But now they either hide the truth from us or just tell us lies. Take high-tech development as example. They asked for $60 million for preliminary design. In the past, such papers would tell us the budget or the estimated cost for the project, and it's only upon our persistent asking that they told us that it would cost $25 billion. That was the assessment a few years ago. I'm sure it will be over $40 billion. We asked about the mode of operation, and we're told that it would be a design and build and operation contract. We asked about the mode of operation, and were told that it could be found in the consultancy report, which didn't really have the details. So the mode of governance is such that they just want to get by using different lies. I really pity the professional and also the civil servants. Of course, the officials of the Civil Aviation Department is a separate issue. They're just like 689 and Port Chen. They have 1,000 square feet, a dancing room, and they said that it could be used for a singing karaoke. So what about those living in SDUs? SDUs cost $4,000 per square foot. All these are within the portfolio of these incompetent secretary. So the culture of governance is deteriorating. Actually, it's not a deterioration, but rather they have learned and copied the mode of the Chinese Communist Party. On the mainland, even you have accepted bribes up to $2-3 billion, you don't have to be jailed. And whereas in Hong Kong, if you have accepted bribes up to $50 million, you may be jailed for a few years. So our core values have vanished into thin air, and yet this government still take pride in take pride in the current state. The Hawk, Andy Zhang, when he retired, he said that our police force was still the Asia's finest or the world's finest. And you look at those statements made by police officers for prosecution, I think they should seek Mr. Paul Zi's advice. If they have consulted experts, their statements would not be fabricated in such a manner. Now, for triad elements, when they are in front of the, if they are in front of the court, I think they could perform better than police officers now. So our police officer are not even up to the standard of public order officials on the mainland. They are just like the city management guards there. All right, turning back to the 3RS, and the secretary has said openly that he believed that the 3RS would not pose any adverse environmental impacts.
All projects will inevitably have an impact on the environment, but then the EIA report might rely on some mitigation measures to mitigate the impact. So they try to mitigate it to such an extent that it would be permitted under the law. Inevitably, there would be impacts. So are you telling me that the 3RS, all right, with reclamation extensively around the airport island with more aircraft noise and so on, it would not affect the habitat of the dolphins, and there will be no environmental impact? Or say, I think it's a pack of lies. So for those who are not in the know, they would be deceived. So in terms of the wording, they are just resorting to lying by hook or by crook, so that they would be able to get away with crime. Okay, so I'll be criticizing him again further. Please sit down, Albert Chan. Of course, I'll sit down. Once again, I'd like to call for a quorum count. Mr. Albert Chan, this is not your turn to speak.
盧偉國議員。
Mr. Lo Wai-kwok.
代理主席。